Welcome in, guys, to the 12th installment of your Razor Recap, your go-to destination for the latest updates on Arkansas baseball and softball action. Join us as we break down the thrilling moments, highlight standout performances, and discuss the strategies that shape these games. The Razor Recap is brought to you by Scarlet Letter, Arkansas's very own handcrafted spiked seltzer. Check them out today. And if you're in Northwest Arkansas, check out the Core Brewery Tap Room, where you can get all their Scarlet Letters in their various flavors, as well as their core beer that they brew in-house. And speaking of Core, in case you've missed our announcements, we will be back live at Core this Saturday for our live show where we'll be talking Arkansas baseball. It'll be after the Arkansas A&M series wraps up. And we'll have guest, former Razorback baseball player Matt Goodhart there joining us talking Arkansas baseball and kind of what it looks like after the results of the series against Texas A&M and going into SEC tournament play and, what it looks like going down into postseason baseball for these Arkansas Razorbacks. And speaking of the Razorbacks, man, what a crazy weekend and events in this weekend series. I mean, just general thoughts right off the bat.
Starting pitching was crazy, but the bats definitely came alive, man. I mean, it was the wildest series of all time. I've never seen anything quite like it. Words can't even really express how weird this series was. But it's definitely Arkansas baseball for us to find a way to win 2 out of 3. I hope we can kind of continue that trend, even in games where we do struggle early on or something like that. The fight that's in this team is on a different level, and they know that they're never out of a game, no matter how many runs they're down. And we'll dive into that a little bit more. But dude, they never give up. It's shown through in all 3 of these games. It was a really, really fun series. A lot of frustration, at times, but man, a lot of things to celebrate too.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we'll jump right in here. Arkansas on Friday night did their thing. Hagan, didn't have the best outing, but he still comes out and throws 5 innings, 94 pitches, 4 hits, allows 3 runs, a little bit more than he normally does, has 4 walks, a little bit more than he usually throws, but still comes out and throws 11 strikeouts. So, another normal day at the office for Hagan Smith as he comes in and kind of gets things done. Christian Fouch comes in for an inning and a third, 22 pitches. He allows 1 hit, 1 walk, and a strikeout. Gabe Gackel comes in for an inning and a third, 41 pitches, 2 runs, 3 walks, 2 strikeouts. Will McIntyre comes in for just a third of an inning, 22 pitches, 2 hits, 1 walk, and 1 strikeout. So not a terrible outing, but also you'd like to see him be in there more than just a third of an inning. But, in hindsight, that was probably good for Arkansas. That way he was able to come back in that game 3 in a clutch situation for Arkansas. And then you had Gage Wood wrap things up in the final inning, throwing only 12 pitches and getting 1 strikeout, where pitching staff got things done here, allowed Arkansas to get the win 7-5.
Game.
Yeah. And so, Arkansas started scoring in the 3rd inning here when Sprague scored on a wild pitch that was followed up by Hudson White, 2-run home run to put up Arkansas 3-0. You got to love what you're seeing out of Hudson White and him swinging the bat right now. And then Mississippi State, unfortunately, would respond with 3 runs of their own in the 4th to tie the game up. Sprague then would come back and have a solo shot himself in the 5th to put Arkansas up 4-3. State then would add 2 runs in the 8th to take a 5-4 lead. But then in the bottom of the 8th, Vahiva Aloy would have a 1-out RBI single to tie things up. And then who else? Hudson White swinging the hot bat would drive in 2 go-ahead runs with a 2 RBI single. And Hudson White would finish this game 2 for 4 with a home run and 4 RBIs. And Jared Sprague would finish 3 for 4 with that home run. So you see guys stepping up. And, we talked about it last week, how bad the hitting was at Kentucky. It seemed maybe some of these guys are starting to approach the plate better and, have better at bats.
Yeah, and the best thing about it is it can be contagious at times. There's still a couple of guys that kind of need to get rolling just a touch more than they are. I'd really like to see McLaughlin kind of get back to his former self, if possible. Obviously, Kendall Diggs has, kind of been up and down. He's had a couple good games lately, which is a good sign that maybe he's on his way, kind of to break out of it. But he's still not where anybody thought he would be, frankly. That said, though, you've had some tremendous production out of guys like Sprague, obviously Peyton Stovall, Peyton Holt, they've been really swinging bats well. And then Hudson White's kind of been, the surprise factor of at least this weekend. He had some pretty good at bats against Kentucky as well. He's kind of one of the only ones, but man, he really had a great series against Mississippi State and was a critical factor into why we won this series overall. So, been great seeing his minor adjustments. I know the commentators in a couple of the games were talking about how him and Coach Nate Thompson had made some adjustments just in his stance to try to get him a little bit more comfortable at the plate, relaxing his legs a little bit more than he was earlier on in the year. And I don't know if it's just a fluke or if that's really, causing big dividends. But, dude, his production has skyrocketed lately. And he was obviously the main factor why we won game one. And then he was a big piece of why we were able to pull out game three and have a decent comeback in game two, all things considered. So, like I said, at the beginning, the Hawgs got a lot of fight in them because all of these games could have easily been losses. Obviously, game two was a loss, but all three of them could have been. But it was really, really fun to see our bats be the reason that we're able to kind of get back into these games and pull out 2 out of 3.
Yeah, so true. I mean, so when you jump over to game two here, you look at it, and this is kind of where things starting to go off the tracks a little bit. Arkansas fell in this game 8-5, where main factor of not a big factor, but one of the big issues you don't want to see is your starter Brady Tiger goes an inning and 2/3, 54 pitches in an inning and 2/3, allowing 3 hits, 4 runs, 5 walks, and 2 strikeouts. I don't know, between Molina and Tiger, this weekend, not having a great weekend last weekend at Kentucky, what's going on there. But now is not the time for these guys to get into some type of funk, slump, whatever you want to call it. Right here near the end of the season when, it's clutch time and, we're working on playing for better seeding and trying to put ourselves in the best position possible for a regional and in the SEC tournament as well. So he has a quick day. Ben Bybee comes on for 2 1/3 inning, going 56 pitches, 3 hits, 4 runs, 4 walks, and 3 strikeouts. And then Mississippi State would not score anymore after Ben Bybee. Parker Coyle comes in, has a very impressive outing as he throws 3 1/3 scoreless innings, 42 pitches, 3 hits, 3 strikeouts. Probably his best outing all season. Then Cooper Dossett comes in for 1/3 of an inning. I think 2 pitches in, he hits a guy in the helmet. And, 5 pitches later, Dave's seen enough. Stone Hewlett comes in for 1/3 of an inning, 8 pitches, one walk, 1 strikeout. And Jake Faraday finishes things up in the final inning with 15 pitches and 2 strikeouts. So, another day where you got to love the depth that this Arkansas bullpen has. If we didn't have the depth that we do, we probably don't win game 3, and it's definitely game 3 or game 2 looks a lot worse.
100%. Parker Coyle obviously was, in my opinion, the standout for this game. Should have got the game ball if he did. And I'm not really sure if they even do game balls or anything like that. But for him to come in and chew up, almost 4 innings, considering the year he's had, I thought that was a huge step up for him, especially with how hot some of Mississippi State's batters were swinging, especially in those first couple of innings. So for him to kind of come in and calm things back down, obviously we were down 8-0 at this point, and for him to kind of let us at least have a chance to try to, scratch and claw our way back into it. And we did. We chipped away. We obviously, it's tough to score 8 unanswered runs or more, which we were able to do that in game 3. But, that's definitely a tough ask. But you had some good pitching out of Coyle. I mean, even, Hewlett threw pretty well. Jake Faraday threw quite well, I thought. Very efficient. Parker Coyle was extremely efficient, especially one of those innings. I think he only threw like 7 pitches, had 2 1-pitch outs off of just some quick outs, and then got the next guy into like a full count, struck him out or something like that. So it was a very quick inning. So he did quite well in comparison to the rest of his outings all year long. So that's a good thing to see. Maybe he can kind of be one of those guys you lean on a little bit more in the postseason than you were maybe expecting. Brings back to mind, McIntyre from, I think it might have been 2 years ago, really didn't have a very good regular season at all, but then was lights out in postseason. So, maybe Parker Coyle can kind of harness a little bit of that type of energy. But, overall, I was still pleased to see, we got down big, in the first 2-3 innings of this game, and never gave up, chipped away at it, did the right things from a pitching standpoint to set us up for Game 3 while still not allowing any extra runs after them being up 8-0. So you can't ask for much more out of the last 6 innings of this game than what you got. It would have been cool to score 9 runs and win it, but overall, I was pleased with the way we fought this one out and the way our pitching set us up for Game 3.
Yeah, that's true. So, running through this real quick, Arkansas was down 8 in the 4th inning in the second game. Arkansas added 2 runs on an error and a sac fly RBI by Holt. They'd add 2 more runs in the 5th via a home run from Peyton Stovall. And then Arkansas would score its final run in the 6th inning off of a sac fly from Diggs. And, like we said, came up short there, fought our way back to within 3, just kind of ran out of time to get things done there. And like Seth said, that set up a big rubber match for Game 3 here as Arkansas wins it 9-6. And you'd think with that score, it was a lot of back and forth, a lot of 2-3 run innings. Nope,
it's one back and forth.
One back and forth, and similar stories that second game. Mason Molina comes out, he throws even less, going just 1 inning, 31 pitches, 4 hits, 4 runs, 1 walk, and 1 strikeout. So another day where your starter comes out and hardly gives you anything, and then it's on your bullpen to carry the weight the rest of the game. Gage Wood comes in for 3 innings, throws 53 pitches, allows 4 hits, 2 runs, 1 walk, and 3 strikeouts. I think he was big to chew up some innings there. We've seen him get more and more playing time in weekend series as the season's kind of went on. He had that little stretch in the middle of the season where he didn't have a few great outings, but I think he's earned that trust back from Coach Van Horn. Then you had Christian Fouch come in for an inning, 16 pitches, 2 hits, efficient there. Will McIntyre came in 2 innings, 34 pitches, 1 hit, 3 walks, and 1 strikeout. So a little bit better of an inning. You'd like to see less walks, but the fact that he got through that without any runs being scored is big for him. And then Gabe Geckel, who else? Your key closer, comes in 2 innings, 34 pitches, 2 hits, 1 walk, 3 strikeouts. Come up big to close things out for Arkansas, especially after we took the lead there in the end of the game. But again, it's just echoing how key our bullpen depth was in this series, and I think it's shown a lot.
Yeah, you can't ask for better outings from your bullpen guys trying to piece together 2 games realistically. That's pretty tough, especially for most SEC ball clubs. I think there's a handful of clubs that could kind of do what we did in these games 2 and 3 like this, where we were able to piece it together with a lot of different guys that were able to come in and chew up some innings, get some outs, give up a few hits, a few runs here and there. I think walks were definitely one of our biggest issues this weekend. Even outside of just the starters, there was a couple of relievers here and there that had some uncharacteristic walks. You do have to give Mississippi State some credit. They were very, very selective at the plate, did a great job being patient. But better than most teams we've gone up against. I think it honestly might be a bit of a testament to how good their pitching staff is. And you can kind of tell that their hitters have faced a lot of their good pitchers in practice and things like that. So they're very disciplined and can pick up a lot of different types of pitches and spins off of the release points. They weren't chasing a lot of the things that were out of the zone. So swing and miss pitches were hard to come by outside of, trusty old Hagen Smith. So all in all, though, man, the bullpen was, in my opinion, 90% of maybe 80% of the reason why we won these games. The bats came alive, and you got to give them a lot of credit too. But if your bullpen doesn't, shut some of these games down where Mississippi State was scoring big early, bullpen comes in and settles things down and kind of slows the damage down, whatever you want to call it. You don't win these games. No matter how good your bats come on, if you're down 6 and then they keep on scoring in bunches after that, you're down 15 or something crazy. So you got to give a lot of credit to the bullpen, being able to come in some tough situations, guys on base, being able to get out of sticky situations. The fielding was quite good. There was a lot of highlight plays in this series. Can't say enough about Peyton Stovall playing in the outfield, man. He has looked like an absolute natural out there, considering he's kind of a traditional infielder. He's just an athlete. He can play anywhere, and that's been showing lately. He had some tremendous plays out there to kind of help back up the bullpen, if you will, too, on some balls that were hit that could have been, base hits or doubles, things like that. So a lot of guys really stepped up and played well. We turned a couple double plays that were really clutch for us. So overall, good team wins, man. There's not a lot more to say about it than this took a tremendous team effort from every single facet of the game. Pitching, hitting, defending, getting your mind right. Being able to claw back into games that you think you're out of. So, from a fan's perspective, man, I think we all need heart surgery after that and get some stents because I think everybody had heart attacks in a couple of these games.
That's so true. Like you said, another guy, like we mentioned Hudson White earlier, Peyton Holt is incredibly a key factor in this series. It seems like as, he's gotten inserted the lineup, he has taken a hold of the playing time he's got and just ran with it. And rightfully so. I mean, we saw this out of him last year when he came in for Stovall after he, was out the second half of the season due to that injury. But yeah, like you said, with that bullpen, it's insane. Hopefully we don't have another weekend like this because
you don't want this, but it's nice that you can pull out a win if it does happen.
That's true. A number I don't want to see again is the number 25. That's the number of walks this total weekend. And, that's abnormal for an Arkansas pitching staff, especially this year's staff. Up until here late, you hardly saw any walks from this pitching staff. And if you did, you maybe had 10 or less in the entire weekend.
I think that was by far the most we'd allowed across a weekend by like 8 walks. I'm pretty sure the previous high was like 16 or 17 across a 3-game stretch, which was still a lot. This was way bad. I mean, like tremendous issues on command. You could make some arguments that the strike zone was questionable at times, but still, you got to throw strikes.
Yeah, that's true. You got to adjust there. I will say I was at the game on Friday night, and, Hagan usually, like we said, he doesn't normally walk that many guys. And so, I don't know what kind of strike zone that umpire was looking at, but it was insane on the number of pitches that, were called balls that were easily strikes. But I don't know if he needed his eyes checked or what, but it was
inconsistent.
He'd
call a lot of strikes low, but then the next pitch would be even higher than the one he just called a strike, still across the plate, and it'd be a ball. And it just felt very inconsistent.
Yeah, very true. And so let's highlight this offensive performance that Arkansas put out in Game 3 because it was insane. State scored their 5 runs in the second, and then added one more in the third to make it 6-0 early in this game. Like we said, Arkansas won at 9-6 here. But Arkansas would start chipping away, scoring 1 run in the fourth off a ground out RBI from Helfrich that would score Sprague a lot. And then here's where things got started in the 5th inning. Jason Jones, a guy that we've talked about, hoping he would come on and get more playing time as, we're kind of still searching for that guy on left. Well, he's helping his odds here as he came out and put up a 2-run home run that was followed up by a Sprague RBI ground out that would help Arkansas get closer. But he had a big bat that came up clutch in Sunday's game. And then down 6-4 in the 6th. Who else other than what we talked about earlier? Hudson White smashed yet another 2-run home run to tie the game. And then the man himself, Peyton Holt, would come up clutch and with his own 2-run home run to put Arkansas up 8-6 in this game, where at this point, I was surprised that we even got back to tying the game. And then what a clutch at bat Peyton Holt came up and had. And then in the 7th, McLaughlin would hit a sac fly that scored Sprague to put up Arkansas up 9-4. Holt had a game. He went 3 for 4, a double, a home run, and 2 RBIs. Like we said, he's got a bat out there, and that's what we've been missing. And, all of our guys out in outfield have been struggling hitting the ball. Wilmsmeyer, great defensive guy, but, just doesn't seem to look comfortable at the plate. Diggs, as we've talked about, been going through that slump, and he's kind of been trying to work through that. It looked like he kind of broke through it last week, but then, he injured himself and, dealing with that shoulder injury again. And then, it's been, a handful of guys by committee in left field. And like we said, Jason Jones was out there one game. You had Lovich out there one game. And so I believe as Edmondson had played some too. So, they're still trying to find guys to lock in here. And I think Jason Jones did a good job at trying to potentially get his name called again in this next weekend. But, after such a good performance this weekend, you had Gabe Geckel named SEC Freshman of the Week. What a season this kid's put together in his freshman season, turning into Arkansas's key closer here, out of freshman. One stat that I was very impressed by that they mentioned over the weekend was he's yet to allow a home run in his freshman season. So let's hope that's something that he can kind of keep that trend going throughout the rest of this regular season, as that's just one more series away and into the postseason.
Yeah, that's kind of an insane stat considering how many innings he's pitched. And it's not just a crazy amount like some, Saturday starter or something like that, but he's in a lot of games for 1, 2, sometimes 3 innings at a time. And he's been throwing against some of the best hitters out there, and he's looking really solid while doing it. And that coming from a freshman, for him to already have the velo that he's got and the off-speed pitches, there's a significant drop-off between like his fastball and his changeup. And that really has made a lot of hitters just struggle with timing against Gabe Geckel, and that's where his success is coming from. It's not that he's got some like crazy nasty cutter that that would remind you of like a Kevin Kopps or something like that. It's his velocity difference that's really been, in my mind, kind of an eye popper, and that's not something that a lot of people kind of key in on. But if you're a hitter, that is extremely hard when you're looking at 10, 12, 13, 14 miles per hour difference between a fastball and a changeup, and they look the exact same coming out of his arm slot. It's just like impossible to get your timing right. And then he'll mix in a breaking ball every now and then, and it just, it completely mind blows people. So he's done very, very well at staying outside of being predictable. I think that's been some of the issues for some of our other pitchers. We've talked about it plenty already. I'm not going to beat that horse to death. I already have. But I think that's one thing that's proven quite well for Gabe Geckel, because there is a lot of film on him at this point, especially kind of in that closer, late reliever type role. People know what's coming as far as fastball, change up heavy with some breaking balls here and there. But you can't dial it up, man. There's too much variability in what he's able to do, and he's done quite well at his command. I think that's another thing. He's able to throw pretty much any pitch he's got for strikes. That's something that we can't quite say about everybody else currently, and I think that's been extremely beneficial for his longevity as kind of our main closer. You could make kind of an argument for Gage Wood as well, kind of being a reliever / closer, but those two guys right there, with the way that they've kind of come on and done well, especially as of late, it sets us up, quite nicely to be able to piece together a few innings here and there in the short relief out of the bullpen, even when you've got not the best starting pitching in certain games. And so seeing that, gives me a lot of confidence that we do have potential to make a deep postseason run. We have some issues, don't get me wrong. Like this weekend series highlighted a lot of issues that we need to do better on, because you don't want to have to come behind from 8-0 or 6-0. I mean, you're not going to win most of those games. Let's be real. You're just not. So being able to kind of get things started off on the right foot, still score 9 runs, but maybe only give up 2, that would really make me feel a lot better about kind of where we stand. And I think that's what this team is capable of. We just kind of got to get all the pieces to mesh at one time together, between, consistent pitching throughout your entire 9 innings, and then good at bats from, your 1 through 6, 1 through 7, heck, 1 through 9. We've got good hitters kind of all the way down the lineup, especially depending on who's playing in the outfield. Jason Jones, for example, batting away late in the lineup, but he's got tremendous power. So you never know what you're going to get when you got somebody like that kind of way down. People aren't expecting it. He'll drop a nuke on you.
Yeah, so true. Yeah, when you're talking about those Gabe Geckel stats, he's pitched 35 innings over the season so far, and he's faced 142 batters.
That's insane. And some of them are, like going to be first round draft picks. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, and to see what he's done with that, 35 innings, 142 batters, and not give up a home run, that's pretty impressive. But like you said, when you have guys like him and Gage Wood that can step in and chew up some innings, that's big. And like we said, hopefully going forward, we don't see many more outings like this, but that kind of brings into question something I was going to, posed to you is if you're Dave Van Horn and you saw this weekend, a combination of this weekend and last weekend, do you look to switch up your weekend rotation? Do you give a guy like a Ben Bybee, a Gage Wood, a chance to maybe start on Sunday, and you either keep Tigert or Molina for Saturday and move Tigert or Molina to kind of a relief or a closing type of role?
Yeah, so that's a really tough question because you've had pretty good success with this rotation that you've had most of the season. And ideally, you'd like to kind of keep it the same, keep the guys' workloads, expectations, their mind space and all that kind of the same. But to your point, you have to have better production. You have to. So to me, it feels almost too late in the year to really be trying to monkey with it too much. I'm kind of leaning towards where we're probably going to keep seeing kind of the same rotation, just with the understanding, that, hey, you need to save Gage for a game, depending on when it's going to be. So be strategic when you use him. You need to save McIntyre for a game because, you might need 3 or 4 innings out of him. Bybee, now that we're not pitching midweeks, that's just, kind of an extra starter, if you will, in your back pocket, which – he hasn't been just phenomenal in conference play, but he hasn't been just horrible either. He's been able to come in, get you some outs, give up a hit or two, but find ways to get batters out. So that's kind of an extra piece there. The one that I would have liked to have seen kind of be an extra starter to throw in if, a Brady or a Mason weren't doing their best was Colin Fisher. I thought he was having a pretty good season in some of those midweek games. Obviously, didn't have a lot of experience in the SEC, but he had tremendous stuff. So it hurts losing him for the year because that would have been one more guy that has significant experience in that starting role that can get 3 or 4 innings, no problem, especially if he's got good command. And that would have been another one that you have in your back pocket if your normal starter just struggles out the gate. So that said, I could make a case, obviously, to start Gage Wood, get 3 or 4 innings out of him. I don't know if you're going to get much more out of him. I don't think he's quite got that endurance factor that, some of your main starters do, where I don't think Gage is going to be, throwing 100 pitches. I just don't know if he's got that in him with the way he, throws the ball so dang hard. But I could see the case to be made to start him, kind of flip-flop his and Brady's role, for example, because Brady's done pretty well in the past at being a reliever / closer. So change it up, see if he has a little bit more success. I could see an argument for that. Granted, it's late in the year. And then I could see the same argument kind of for like Mason and Will McIntyre or something like that. McIntyre has started games before plenty of times. He hadn't really started any this year, I don't think. Maybe 1 or 2 early in the year, but I really don't think he started any at all. And so, maybe that's the change he needs because he hadn't been doing as good as he was early in the year. So you might could kind of stir the pot quite a bit and just kind of flip-flop the roles of a couple of these guys where instead of McIntyre kind of being that first reliever in, flip-flop it where you got him starting and then Molina would be your first reliever in and see if you can get a combination of 6 innings between those 2 guys, whether it's 4 and 2, 3 and 3, whatever. Heck, if you could get more than that out of them, great. But I would like to see that happen in a sense, but then at the same time, man, it's just late in the year in my mind to be really monkeying around with it too much right now. If we were just kind of at the midpoint of conference play, sure. But with just 1 series left, it's going to be on the road, so that might make it even more tough from a mental standpoint. That's definitely a factor you want to think about with the guys that are used to starting, kind of having those early pregame jitters a little bit or something like that they're used to handling. Maybe leave those guys in there. I don't know. I could definitely see it going both ways, though.
Yeah, that's true. It's one of those things. I wonder, even like a minor tweak is in you flip flop Brady and Mason again because for most of the year you had Molina be your Saturday guy and Brady was your Sunday guy. Well, ever since the Molina injury, you had Brady switch back to your Saturday guy. Molina's been your Sunday guy. Maybe you flip flop those guys back, and then another thing you got to consider too, and it probably will be dependent on the circumstances, especially if you get late into some postseason games. You have a guy like Brady Tigert that comes out and only throws an inning in the third. Well, is in postseason, is he available the next day since he only threw an inning in a third?
100%.
So
maybe not to start, but you got him in the back end if you need to throw him in as a closer or something like that.
right.
We've seen that happen before.
That's my thought too, is with him having such success over the previous couple seasons in that closing relieving type role, you don't want to seem like you're punishing a guy by saying, all right, you're not starting anymore. But in the situation of where you're not giving the production that's needed in clutch time, like we said, you give one of those other guys a chance, Bybee or Wood. We saw Wood start that one of the last midweek games we had and go 4 solid innings. It's one of those things where Dave's got to figure it out, and maybe he says, "Hey, we've rode with you guys all season, so it's going to be you guys, going." And I don't know how much of it. Maybe these guys are putting more pressure on themselves by, the bats aren't doing well, so they're maybe they're putting more pressure on themselves to say, "Hey, we've got to come out and pitch lights out," and that's causing them to maybe struggle a little bit.
Yeah, that's the one big thing I think I've seen that kind of stands out as something that if they do stay the starters, that I think there needs to be a little bit of a mindset shift on, okay, we know our guys can kind of chip us back into games if need be, if we do get down a few runs. So just throw strikes. The walks is what really got us down big in these games where, we would load the bases up and then they'd have a bases clearing double or something, and it was like really only one of those runs should have been earned with one of them being a hit. And then there was 2 walks or something. It just, that's the stuff that you really got to cut down on. I think there needs to be a little bit more trust factor on the defensive side of things. Pitch to contact if you got to. It's not a big deal. It's even if you give up a home run or 2 every now and then, if you're not walking guys and having 2 or 3 guys on base at a time when those home runs happen, they don't hurt tremendously. I mean, you don't want to give up home runs, but you know what I'm saying? I think there's almost been a mindset that, hey, if we give up 1 or 2 runs, we're going to have a tough time winning this game. So I have to not throw anything over the heart of the plate. And you don't want to, just leave meatballs out there. But I think everybody's almost trying to paint the corners too much, and they're just missing. So it's like, get back to throwing strikes. If you're pitching to contact, fine. If you give up a few runs, fine. As long as they're earned runs, not through walks or hit by pitches or whatever the case may be. So, if you're still struggling with command, even with that mentality of, hey, I'm just coming out here to throw as many strikes as possible. If they hit a few of them, who cares? If you're still struggling with command after that, then you've got something else going on as far as just struggling with mechanics or something like that. These guys are, D1 SEC pitchers. They know how to throw consistent strikes usually, So if there's something going on to where they're trying to throw consistent strikes, but they're too scared to, touch too much of the plate, it can come back to really bite you. And that's kind of what we saw this weekend. So I'd like to see an adjustment from Matt Hobbs, kind of, the way he's calling some of these games. I know some of the catchers, whether it's Helfrich or Hudson White out there, they call quite a bit of the game as well. But a lot of directive is coming in from Coach Hobbs. So, he's not telling these guys exactly where to place them, but I think there needs to be some clear communication that's like, look, guys, we got to start throwing more strikes more consistently. There was way too many, 0-2 counts that we'd end up walking a guy on or something like that because we'd get them 0-2 and then absolutely not even get close to the plate for 4 straight pitches after that. And it was just.
Yeah, you tried to throw a curve or a breaking ball and get them on the edge of the plate.
And it just wasn't happening. They were too disciplined. And I kind of talked about that earlier on in the segment. But when you're going up against teams that are, this good, you got to throw strikes even when you are up 0-2. It's fairly rare, unless you're Hagen Smith, that you can throw something dramatically out of the zone and get a swing and miss. Everybody definitely knows what's coming more often than not. Once Brady gets up 0-2, you're going to get a ton of breaking balls usually, but he wasn't getting close with them. So it's, everybody was just sitting on those, letting them fly out of the zone and then taking their walks. So got to find a way to get in the strike zone quite a bit more. Even if it accounts for a few more hits, I don't think it'll account for many more runs if you can keep those walks back down. So play some tomato there. At least you're giving your defense an opportunity, to have some highlight plays and rob some runs and base hits and things like that because they've shown that they can do it already. So that's the one big thing I'd like to see an adjustment from, especially from Molina and Tiger going into the postseason, is find a way to have the confidence to throw a few more strikes, even if you miss your spot and leave one hanging over it and they hit a 2-run blast on you, it's okay as long as you're not walking a ton of dudes.
Yeah, that's true. And you don't want to walk runs home. We
Happens.
we did that a few this weekend, but that, like you said, those walks killed us. The number of bases loaded innings we had this weekend was insane.
Yeah,
and
sketchy.
Mississippi
Mississippi State's got to be kicking themselves because they left like 12 guys on base just in game 3,
I think it's game 3.
It was. Yeah, they left 12 or 13 guys on base just in that game alone. So the damage could have been a lot more. So you do got to give credit to the pitching for being able to, kind of work out of some sticky situations. They definitely were able to do that. And the defense stepped up and pulled some clutch plays kind of out of thin air on a couple of them. But I tell you, you just can't walk as many guys as we did. It was out of character.
Yeah. But, I mean, I loved how fired up Dave Van Horn was after that final game. If you haven't seen the clip, he's talking to the team, and he says that dugout over there, he said, I don't hear blink anything from that dugout. So even Dave was fired up after, the game. He said it was the best series win so far this season. And I think he's got a point in that with the resiliency that this team's shown because, majority of the other series we've either swept and been really in command of every game, or, it was a close game. There hadn't been that many series that we've had to really fight and come back from being down, a significant amount of runs. Just like, we were down 8 runs, fought back with 5. And then this game was down 6 and then came back to win it with 9 runs. So, Dave understands that this was a big weekend for this team, and, right now I would love to be the time the bats get hot. I hated that we didn't necessarily have them throughout the season, but we still got the wins. But now, as the competition level is going to continue to increase, especially as, this is going to be one of the biggest matchups in college baseball this weekend as we're heading down to Texas A&M. And then, I mean, what do you expect out of regional and postseason play? I mean, you're facing the best teams, and that it's just going to ramp up. So, hopefully this is a good momentum building weekend for these guys. And like you said, hopefully Molina and Tigert can kind of get back in a great headspace for a great weekend on the road, as we're going to need the best out of everybody. A&M did lose the series to Ole Miss this weekend, which was a little surprising, but they're going to be back wanting blood this weekend. And so Arkansas is going to have to bring their A game, and I think it's going to be big.
It's going to be tough because they've lost back-to-back series, I believe, and so they're going to be itching to kind of get back in the win column. So it's almost unfortunate that we're playing them at the time that we are. In a way, it's nice because they're beatable and they're struggling a bit compared to what they were, a few weeks back when they were scoring 19 runs a game. So the bats have cooled off a little bit for them, but at any given moment they're going to spark right back up. It feels like that team's just got too much talent to keep dropping series. So to me, it's just kind of a scary time to go play them after they've lost back-to-back series. They're going to be clawing
especially
more
on the
than ever
road.
on the road. They're going to be trying to get back into the win column, especially right here before postseason play starts. So this one, to me, it's got a lot of implications. We need to at least win one, and I think that'll keep us to where we win the West. I think we're 2 games ahead of them right now.
We're 2 games ahead.
Yep. So if we can go down there and steal game 1 with Hagan, find a way to hit the ball pretty well, put up 5-6 runs, and only give up 2-3 at most, that's all you need. It's actually not going to be the end of the world if you lose the series to them. I
was about to say, I'm safe to say that Arkansas is a lock to be a top 8 national seed, especially after this series this weekend. That was big at home to kind of show that we fought back, and I think that's going to go a long way. But Arkansas jumped back up to number 3 in the polls. I think it's safe to say we're a lock for a top 8 national seed, most likely a top 5 seed. But whoever sits in that number 1, it's kind of up for grabs right now. You've got Tennessee sitting up towards the top. You've got A&M that's probably going to be considered, even though they dropped a few series. I honestly really don't know right now who's going to get that number 1 seed. But
hopefully Tennessee. Give them a curse.
And so, yeah, Arkansas goes on the road this weekend to face the Texas A&M Aggies for the regular season finale in what should be a fantastic showdown. And as we jump over to Arkansas softball, they had their SEC tournament appearance this week as they faced Missouri in the SEC tournament, a team that, they took the series back in Bogle, a month or so ago. And this was a weird game. They end up losing this game 3-1, but this was a game that spanned over 12 hours. And not for necessarily the purposely of length of game, but Arkansas got through 4 innings before they had some weather issues and delays down in Auburn, Alabama, where the SEC tournament was held. And so they got through 4 innings this game, and they called it, and they said, we'll resume at 9 a.m. the next day. And they did it. And so, unfortunately, that stoppage didn't take away much of Missouri's momentum in this game as they kind of came back out firing on all cylinders that next day. Morgan Leanstock got the start in the circle in this one. She went those 4 innings that night, gave up 7 hits, 3 runs, 1 walk, and 5 strikeouts. And then when Arkansas resumed to play that next morning at 9 a.m., Robin Heron took to the circle, going 3 innings, allowing 2 hits, 4 strikeouts. Arkansas fought in this one. They put up 1 run, but had their one and done appearance in the SEC tournament here, and that was it.
Yeah, here's the thing, though. It'd have been nice to make a little bit deeper run. That said, it's not necessarily the end of the world. You've seen it time and time again that, some of these teams that have deep SEC conference championship appearances might win the conference championship or the tournament, at least championship. Sometimes that kind of turns into a hangover going into regionals and supers and things like that. That's happened many a time before. And it's almost there's kind of that old hokey superstition that go into your conference tournament, win you 1 or 2 games, and then lose and go home and get you a week of rest before regionals start and come back out fresh, because regionals, supers, and then Omaha is an absolute gauntlet of a lot of games within a short amount of days, and you're going to need as much rest as you can get before that. So more often than not, it seems like most of the teams that get out of their conference tournaments a little earlier than you might expect, but still are, top 8, top 10 seeds, things like that, they end up having more often than not a little bit better postseason appearance than some of the teams that, go ahead and win it all in their conference championships. Sometimes they're just gassed by the time they get into regionals and supers and things. So, you can speculate till you're blue in the face on if we should have won a couple more games. Maybe it would have helped our seeding. I believe we're a number 12 seed, which isn't a bad thing at all, but it means you're going to have maybe a little bit tougher road to get to the Women's College World Series. So we'll see how it all shakes out. I think this team's got a lot of potential to have a deep postseason run. I think you're going to have a few screws get tightened down, where we've had a couple of issues here and there, giving up a couple more runs than we would like to, and really just kind of struggling to have consistent bats. A little bit more so than I would have thought later in the season, when I was expecting this team to kind of be firing on all cylinders like we were hoping. They've had some huge games, and then they've had some games just like this one where they had a hard time even scratching across 1 run. So got to find a little bit more consistency there, but you got a little bit of time off before things really get rolling in postseason play. So I think it's time to really kind of step it up and see how far we can make it.
That's very true. And like you said, Arkansas did wind up with a number 12 overall seed and will host a regional where they'll face off against Southeast Missouri State in the first matchup, a team that Arkansas has faced twice this season. And they won both matchups 5-0 and 6-5 in 8 innings. So, it's one of those sayings where you got to not necessarily worrisome, but, the saying is, it's hard to beat a team 3 times. So, it's going to be a tough matchup for Arkansas as they've got Southeast Missouri State coming to Bogle. They've been at Bogle before, so they know what to expect with the environment. And then they also have in their regional with them Arizona, another team Arkansas has had the luxury to see already this season, early in the season. They faced them twice and split the games, losing one of the games 3-2 and winning the other one 3-2. And then the other team in the Fayetteville regional is Villanova.
Villanova.
And so you'll have Villanova coming to town along with Arizona and Southeast Missouri State. But with that, Arizona and Villanova do have 30-plus win seasons this year. Villanova was the Big East regular season and tournament champs, both. And then Southeast Missouri State had only 28 wins, but they did win the Ohio Valley Conference. So, like we said, Arkansas has played Arizona and Southeast Missouri State during its non-conference schedule. They split the 2 games with Arizona. One swept the Cardinals in the Whoopit Classic. One thing to note is the Hawgs will not host a Super unless the number 5 seed Oklahoma State doesn't advance to a Super Regional. And so you never know what's going to happen there. So Arkansas would then play the winner of that Stillwater Regional. So whether it's Arkansas going to Stillwater, which wouldn't be the worst. Arkansas fans do travel well, and that's only about a 3-hour drive. So you'll see plenty of Arkansas fans headed that way if that's the case. Got to get out of our own regional first. That what didn't happen last year. We got knocked out by Oregon last year in regional. So you want to see us come back. Like Seth said, maybe it's not the worst thing in the world that we lost out of the SEC tournament early, can come back home, get some rest, reset, and prep for this weekend. As the regional will take place starting the 17th this weekend, and the Hogs will face Southeast Missouri State at 8:30, and then you have the Battle of the Wildcats between Villanova and Arizona that will take place before Arkansas's game at 6 o'clock. Both games will be on ESPN Plus, so get ready to tune in, or if you're in Fayetteville and can get fine tickets, get out there to Bogle and support the Hogs as they have a late night matchup there. And then, like we said, Arkansas baseball will head on the road and take on A&M this weekend. And this series will start on Thursday this week at 7 o'clock. Not Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So be prepared for that. And so with that reminder, again, on Saturday, come out. We'll be at Core doing a live show, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. after the A&M series is finished up. That game starts at, I believe it's 2 p.m. on Saturday, so should be wrapped up or be wrapping up by the time we get ready to go live at Core. Like I said, we're going to have former Razorback Matt Goodhart joining us to talk Arkansas baseball. And, it's going to be another great time. Anything you want to add there, Seth?
No, not really. Just come out, hang out, have a good old time, get you a few drinks. They've got a phenomenal selection of seltzers, a very surprisingly good selection of craft beers that you can't get anywhere else but at the tap room. So if you want to try some of their really good craft beers, come on out, say hey to us, get you a baseball signed by Matt Goodhart, talk to him a little bit. We've had him on the show a couple different times. Phenomenal guy to talk to, extreme baseball knowledge. So I'm really excited to get to visit with him in person, sit down, have a really fun segment with him talking about Razorback baseball, kind of where we think the postseason is headed for us. Obviously, we'll recap some of the A&M series, hoping it goes our way. But there's going to be plenty to talk about, plenty of things to drink, and plenty of good times to be had. It's kid-friendly environment, dog-friendly environment, so there's no reason to not come out and say hey.
Yeah, very true. So, be on the lookout. It's all the information's on our Facebook page. We got the event, so go RSVP to that event. You can let us know if you're coming. Always a good idea to have a head count of who's coming, but there's plenty of space. Like Seth said, come out, enjoy. They have a great selection of whether you're a beer fan, a seltzer fan. They've got a new vodka soda that's going to be coming out later in the summer that they have on tap in at Core, so you can get a sneak peek of that. And we had it last time, very good. But so come out and check us out. Come out, have a good time, and it'll be a good time for everybody. And we'll catch you later this week with our regular show, and then we'll see you guys Saturday.